We're now on Daf Nun Dalid Omid Beis. And we're up to Ella on the second line, Prich Hachi. So Rav Acha Bred Rav Ika is now reformulating the Pircha of Rav Acha Midifti. Malin Nida ve'Iser Eshes Ach. The Torah was machbir in upgrading hara kibia in these two isurei arayas shekain ein osran matiron. The oser does not have the power to be matir. Let's say, for example, in the case of nida, the oser is the dam, and the hafsakas hadam is not matir. You need Yomi. Biyomei talia milsi, you need Shevas Yomi. The same thing in Eshes Ach. The brother is married to her. He, therefore, is Osra. But his death alone does not have the power to be mater her. It's only going to be mater her in event that he leaves no children. Tomar B'Isur Eshes Ach, where there's a kula she'osra matira, that through the get or through his death, he, the oser, the baal, could be matir. So once again, we're left with the question: how do we know that the Torah upgrades hara to consider it like bia in the case of Eshes Ish? Ella Amar Rabbi Yonah, Itamer Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua, Amar Kra, the pasuk says about Yikra Yudches, He call Asher Yasem, Mikol Toevos Eilu V'Nichus Anafashos Ha'osos, Hukshu Kol Harayos Kulon Li'Isur Nida. Nida is mentioned in the previous psukim, and now the Torah says Kol HaToevos Eilu, all the arayos. Man Nida B'Hara, Af Kol B'Hara. So the Gemara now asks the Ella, if you could derive from the Hekesh of Rabbi Yonah to all arayos that hara is asura, nida dechsiva gabi Eshes Ach lamali. Why did the Torah in the Parasha of Eshes Ach mention nida? What was the need for a Hekesh between Eshes Ach and nida when Eshes Ach would be included in hara Kigmar Bia based on the Hekesh of all arayos? And the Gemara answers that Nidahi in the pasuk with regard to Eshes Ach is not teaching me hara Nida, but rather Kid Rav Huna. The Amar Rav Huna remez liyavamim min haTorah minayin. How do we know that the Torah gives a remez to the din of Yibum? So the Gemara immediately objects, Minayin haksiv Yevamot yavole Ella. What was Rav Huna's question? Remez liyavama sha'asura b'chaye baila minayin. How do we find a remez to an Eshes Ach she'ein la banim, that after his death, his wife is a Yevama li'achiv, and Asura b'chaye baila, the Isur Eshes Ach applies while he's alive, meaning after his death, he has no children, then his wife is Yevama. But how do we know that during his lifetime, if he dies, that's not enough? I'm sorry, during his lifetime, if he let's say divorces her, minayin, how do we know this? So the Gemara says, "Hi svarahi." The Isur b'chai baila is also a svara. I don't know why Rav Huna would ask for a source for that in the Torah. No rachmana liachar misas baila sharia. The Torah says that you can only marry your brother's daughter after your death of your brother is michlal de b'chai baila, as long as you're your brother is alive, even if he divorces her, asura. So the Gemara now goes back to the drawing board to explain Rav Huna's kasha. What did he mean? Minayin sheish remez sheyevama b'chai baila asura. And we're not going to derive it from svara. But Dilma, perhaps we could be medayek that li'achar misas baila, when the brother dies, mitzvah, then you have a mitzvah to marry your brother's wife. But b'chai baila rishus, if the Baal delivers her his wife a divorce, then his brother is allowed to marry the ex-wife of his brother, we'll call it. Inami liachar misas baila, he's allowed to be miyabim and marry the wife of his late brother only after he's late brother, he's dead, but b'chai baila lo. But we derive that after his brother divorces his wife, that Easter is derived from the essay, from the mitzvah's essay that only applies after his death. The lava b'machal essay. So it would mean that his wife's brother, his brother's wife, that was pretty funny. His brother's wife is asura olav, even after his brother divorces her, with an Isser Aseh. How do we know there's an Isser Karetz? That the Isser Karetz of Eshesach continues even after the death of his brother, even after the divorce of his brother. So on that, Rav Huna brings a remez, Omikra. Torah says, Vayikra the Ish Asher Yikaches Eshes Achiv Nidahi. So the pasuk compares Habal Eshes Achiv as if he violated an Isser Nida. If he Eshes Achim Nidahi, who says she's a Nida? Maybe she's not seeing any doubt. Ella Kinida, Ma Nida Falga. Afal Pishiesh La Hete, Li Acher Mikan, after she stops being down, she counts 7 days, and she's Tobeles, and she's Muteres Labaila, is nevertheless Peshas Isura. Even though this Isur will terminate, but as long as the Isur is still active, it's Bekares Af Eshes Achnami, Afal Pishiesh La Hete Li Acher Mikan. If he dies and he leaves no children, there's a het on the Yisrael's ach, but b'chai baila b'kares, as long as the Baal is alive, it's an Isur Kares. And this is a remez that Eshes ach is asura when he divorces her. It's an Isur Kares b'chai baila. So now we understand and justify why in the Isur Eshes ach the Torah added the words nidahi. The teacher said Yevamot is asura be'Isur Kares b'chai baila. And ha'ara, we're going to derive from the hekesh of all our rayas to nid. The Gemara says, Ella hara dechsiva gabi achos av achos eim lamali. Why do we need a separate limud of hara? The Torah explicitly says hara in these two cases of an ant, and we shouldn't derive it from the hekesh of Rabbi Yonah. And the Gemara says we need hara in these two cases. Lichadaboy minei ravina mirav hamaore b'zachur mahu. So we're talking about mishkav zachar. And what about a case of ha'ara? Is he chayav from mishkav zachar? The Torah says v'zachar lo sishkav mishkav isha to evahi. And isha sheyishkav zachar mishkav isha to eva also. Shneim mos yumsu, meim ba skila. So right away, when the Gemara asks this question about ha'ara in a case of zachor, the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Zachor mishkavei isha ksiva. The Torah calls it mishkavei isha, which means that whatever constitutes bia as far as isha is concerned, which includes even ha'ara, is also asur in the case of a zachor. So why is Ravina asking Rava hama'ara b'zachor ma'u? Ella, what was the question that Ravina was asking Rava? Hama'ara b'behema ma'u. Is that considered bia? Is he chayv skila for violating the isur of mishkav behema in a case of ha'ara? The Torah says, "Vayikra Yitches ubechol behema lo sitei shchavtecha l'tama ba the isha sheyitei shchavto b'behema mos yumus esam behema tarogu." That's skila. Amalei. So Rava says, I can derive the chiyuv ha'ara behema from an im'eno inyan. Im'eno inyan la'ara d'chsiva. So we're going to take an im'eno inyan and lift it out of its context. We don't need it l'gabe achos avechos ima de asya be'akesha de Rav Yonah. So that we derive from the hekesh of all arayos. Is therefore tneu le'inyan la'ara de behema. That he's going to be chayav ha'ara in the behema in mishkav behema. And now we understand why we need all these psukim for an isa hara. In the nida, we need it as the binyan av to consider hara like bia gemura, and we introduce the hekesh Rav Yonah to derive all our rights from nida. And in the case of ishas ach, why did the Torah introduce nida? To teach you that even if the brother has no children and he divorces his wife, nevertheless she still has asur b'ishas eishes ach. And the hara that's written in achos am and achos aim to teach you in a menu inyan that even behem is chayv hara. So the Gemara now asks Akasha on that limud to be chayv hara behema through him eno inyan. Bichti behema chayv mises bezdin, but he's chayv skila for that sadam. My time at the siv. Le'ahara dida legabe. In the case of the Isra achos am and achos em, it's chayve krisus. They don't have a chiyuv capital punishment of skila. Is lichto. The Torah should have said the chiyuv hara behema gabe mises bezdin. The nelef mises bezdin. In other words, it's very strange that the pasuk for chiyuv hara and behema is written by Eshes. By achos av achos em. So let's say, for example, if you want to find an erva that's similar to behema, it would be imo, chamoso. I mean, those are all misas bezdin. And yet the Torah writes hara by achos aviem. And achos av and achos em are only chayvei krisos. So the Gemara answers that even though there would have been an advantage if the ribui of ha'ara would have written by chayvei misas bezdin like imo or chamoso, but nevertheless, aidi de kule kra uledrasha asi is ksiv meinami ha milsa ledrasha. Since in the pasuk of achos av and achos em in Parshas Kedoshim by Yikra Perek Chaf, there is an element of superfluous, right? Of that which is superfluous, it's miyutar. And the Gemara is going to drive to Rasha. So the Torah also added the Ha'ara Drasha into the parsha of Achos Av and Achos Ein. My drasha. So what is the drasha that we find in Achos Av and Achos Ein? The sign we learned in the Brisa, Ervas Achos Achicha Avicha Lo Segale. Now we're going to darshan Achos Avicha is Bein Achos Ha'av She Achos Shel Ha'av Min Ha'av Ubein Achos Av She Achoso Min Ha'em. So whether it's a sister of your father that is a paternal sister or a maternal sister, Lo Segale Ata Omer Achos Avicha Bein Min Ha'av Ubein Min Ha'em O Eino Ela Min Ha'av V'lo Min Ha'em. And Vidinu, and I'll support the logic that only your father's paternal sister is included here. And Chayav Kan v'Chayav b'Baal Achoso, Ma Achoso bein min ha'av ubein min ha'em, Af Kan bein min ha'av ubein min ha'em. So we can compare your classic Achoso, the Isra Achoso, to the Achos Aviv situation, and we're going to say it's always bein min ha'av bein min ha'em. Oh, the Bryce now wants to clarify another possibility, investigate the possibility of klach l'derech zu, go down this following path, chiev kan v'chiev b'dodasa. So we have Achos Av, and we have the case of dodasa. As it says, Ervas Achos Avicha Lo Segale, She'er Avicha Hi, Ervas Achos Imecha Lo Segale, Ki She'er Imcha Hi. Ma Dodaso Min Ha'av V'lo Min Ha'em. When the Torah prohibits Dodaso, it's only what's called Eshes Achi Aviv Min Ha'av. So this is your father's paternal brother. His wife is your aunt, right? That's the Isra of Dodasa. But V'lo Min Ha'em, but as far as your father's maternal brother, his wife is not included in this Isra. Is Afkan here also in Achos Av? Is Min Ha'av V'lo Min Ha'em? By comparing Achos Av to Dodaso, we come to the exact opposite conclusion. It's only Min Ha'av. Whereas you wanted to compare to Achoso and conclude that it's even Min Ha'em. So the Gemara says, the Brisa says, Nire Lemi Dome. We have this Achos Av case. Should we compare to Achoso or to Dodasa? And we're going to apply the principle of Donim Isra Babi Elav, Mi Isra Babi Elav. Al Tochiach Dodaso, She'ein Isra Babi Elav. So Dodaso is through a Maisa Kedushin. Whereas Achos Av is his genetic sister. And therefore it makes it similar to Achoso, which is his genetic sister. And just like in the case of Achoso, it's Bein Min Ha'av, Bein Min Ha'em, so too in the case of Achos Av, it's Bein Min Ha'av, Bein Min Ha'em. The Brisa still continues. Maybe there's a compelling logic to compare the Isra Achos Av to the Isra Dodaso, and not to Achoso. O klach l'derech zeh. Donim krovei ha'av. Mi krovei ha'av. The case of Achos Av is a case of krovei ha'av. And Dodaso is also Mikrovei Ha'av. Like this is his father's brother's wife. Yal Tochiach Achoso, which is Mikrovei Atzmo. So Krovei, the case of Achos Av is more similar to Dodaso than to Achoso, because Dodaso, like Achos Av, is Krovei Ha'av, but Achoso is Krovei Atzmo. Talmud Lomar, we have all these Sirai Rayas that are written in Parashat Kedoshim, and the Torah only explicates the Onshim, but not the Azharos, because the Azharos are written in an earlier parasha, in Achrei Mos. But the exception is Isur Achos Av Va'em. We find the Azhara. It says, V'ervas Achos Imcha V'achos Avicha Lo Segale Ki Es She'ero Hera Avonom Yisau. And we have the Azhar of the Isur Achos Av Ve'achos Em in the words Lo Segale. And what is this going to teach us? This seeming redundancy. Ervas Achos Avicha Lo Segale. Bein mina av, bein mina em. Ervas achosim chalo segala, bein mina av, bein mina em. The Gemara now asks, Lamali lemichtava. Why does it say lo segala b'achos av? To teach you that it's both mina av and bein mina em. The lamali lemichtav b'achos em. Why can we derive achos em from achos av? The Torah would have chosen one of them, and we could derive the other one from a Memotzinu. Rabbi Avo, Tzricha, we need both of them. To Ikos Rachman, if we would have said Lo Segala only in Achos Av, I would have said the Torah is Machmir in the case of Achos Av, and therefore Beimina Av, Ubeimina Em. Why Shekain Yeshla Chayos? Chayos means Yichus, which is called a principle formulated by the Gemara in Baba Basra of Mishpachas Ha'av Kriya Mishpacha. So therefore the Torah is Machmir, and it's Beimin Av, Beimin Eim. Aval Achos Eim, where there's no Yichus after Mishpachas Ha'eim. Eim Alo, perhaps the Isur in the case of Achos Ha'eim is only Mina Av and not Mina Eim. And now let's do it the other way around. Flip it the other way around. Because the Rachman of Torah would said Lo Segala in the case of Achos Eim. Why would we think that Dafka and Achos Eim it's Beimin Av, Beimin Eim? Shekain Vadois. The Torah is going to be Machmir, Beimin Av, Beimin Eim in this case of Achos, because it's Achos Imo. And Achos Imo is definitely an Achos. Aval Achos Av, that's already, there's no foolproof Hochacha Gemura Vadois, because maybe that's not his father. I mean, we have to lie on road. Is Eim Allah. I might think that the Isur of Achos Av is only Mina Av and not Mina Eim. Sricha. Therefore, we need both Lo Segal. It's one for Achos Aviv and one for Achos Im. Now the Gemara explains the following: the Brisa assumed without even proving it that the Mina Av v'lo Mina Eim. So we're talking about Eishes Achi Aviv, and the Achi Aviv is his father's paternal brother. Minole, how do you know that? Amarava, Asya, Dodo, Dodo. We have a Xerit Shava, Dodo, Dodo. Sivacha in the Isur of Dodaso in Vayikra Chav. State in Pasuk, V'ish Asher Yishkaves Dodaso, Ervas Dodo Gila. So it says the word dodo in the Isur Dodasa. Uksiv Hasam. Okay, this is a different parsha. In Vayikra Chaf Hey, we're talking about Zchus Geula in a city that's walled. Or, for example, we are going to talk about a Yisrael who was sold to a guy. There also we have a din of Geula, a mitzvah of Geula for the Krovim to be goel him. And it says, O dodo, O ben dodo yigalena. Again, the word dodo. So we now have dodo in two parshas, in two contexts. One is Isha shayishkav es dodaso, etc. And the other is O dodo or ben dodo yigalena. Mala halon, just like in the mitzvah of Geula, which is incumbent on the father's brothers. That's mina av, that his father and his father's brother both share the same common father. V'lo aim, afkan here too. Mina av v'lo aim. So dodaso is going to be derived from mitzvahs geula, and that mitzvah is incumbent upon achi aviv min ha'av. So the Gemara says, "V'hasami nolan." Okay, in geula, that the mitzvah is incumbent upon achi aviv min ha'av. That means a paternal brother. How do you know that? Omar Kra, because it says, "Mimishpachto yigalena." The Torah called the Krovim mishpachto. They're the ones who are chayv to be goel, their relative, and mishpachas av kriya mishpacha mishpachas eim eina kriya mishpacha. So it must be that the meaning of the pasuk is lekrovav mitzad ha'av, and therefore dodo, which means achi aviv, it also has to be min ha'av, because the isur of dodo so is eshes achi aviv min ha'em, v'lo eshes achi aviv min ha'em. It's got to be eshes achi aviv min ha'av, and not eshes achi aviv min ha'em. So the Gemara asks, we have a Mishnah later on at Daf Tzadi Vav. In a case of a man who marries a woman and then he goes out to Medina Sayam, Omrulo Mesa Ishtecha. So Yaakov was married to Leah. They had a daughter, Dinah. Yaakov dies, and Chetzron marries Leah, who was the wife of Yaakov. V'nodolo Bas Ushma Yocheved. So Dinah and Yocheved are sisters Mina'em from Leah. Chetzron marries Keturah, and they have a daughter by the name of Sarah. So it means that Yocheved and Sarah are sisters through the same father, Chetzron. They are paternal sisters, whereas Dinah and Yocheved are maternal sisters. Chetzron dies, and Besuel marries Keturah, and they have a daughter whose name is Rivka. So Sarah and Rivka are maternal sisters from the same mother, Keturah. And Besuel marries Chana, and they have a daughter whose name is Malka. So Rivka and Malka are sisters from the father, Besuel. Ruvain and Shimon are brothers. Ruvain marries Malka. And then he goes out to Medina Sayyam, and now witnesses come by, and they say that Malka, his wife, died. Vinasa, and he marries Rivka, who's Achosa. That means Malka's sister, Me'avia. They're both Benos Besuel, but they're not sisters from the mother. They're only sisters from the father. Vinasa, and now he marries Sarah, who's Achosa Shel Rivka Mi'ima. They're both Benos Keturah, but they're not Achios Mina'ah. Sarah is the daughter of Chetzon. And now they come and they say, Mesa, Sarah, your wife died. Vinasa, and he marries Yocheved Achosa Shel Sarah Me'avia. They both are Benos Chetzon. They have the same common father. However, they are not sisters from the same mother. Yocheved is the daughter of Leah. Now again, they come and tell them, Mesa Yocheved Ishto. So his wife Yocheved dies. Vinasa, he marries Achosa, Yocheved's sister Me'ima. Right? He marries Dina, who is Yocheved's sister maternally. They're both Benos Leah. They're not Achios Mina'ah, because Dina is the daughter of Yaakov. And Chazru V'Yomalo, now he finds out Kulam Chayos. All that testimony was false testimony. Is Ruvain Mutar Berishona? He's allowed to marry the wife of the Rishona, meaning Malka, and Ubishlishis and Sarah Shenasa Shlishis. And Rivka Chosa Me'ima Enos Rasa. Shemikevan Shemalka Chos Rivka Mina'ah. Paisa Kayemes Harilo Tofsu Kiddushe Rivka. The Ein Rivka Nechsheves Eishis Ruvain Ela Nusas Ruvain. Umutar Lisa Sarah Shehi Achos Nusa. Umutar even Bedina Shenosa Chamishis Mein Yocheved Achos Mi'imas Rasa. I mean, Kevan Shetofsu Kiddushe Sarah Achos Yocheved Me'av. The Hiyaisa Kayemes Hari Kiddushe Yocheved Lo Tofsu. The Ein Yocheved Nechsheves Eishis Ruvain Ela Mefutas Ruvain. Umutar Lisa as Dina Shiachos Mefuta. And now the Mace Ruvain Lozera Becholatz Echad Me'achiv Li'achas Mishloshes Noshim Elu is Potros Tzoros saying. In other words, the Tzoros do not need Chalitza because of the wives of Ruvain, who's and that's Vada. But Ruvain also berivka shenosa shnia, because she's achos malka me'aviv, the ain't tovsin kedushin biachos isha, the asur gam biochevet shenosa revius. Shekevan shekidusha bishlishis, meaning Sarah tofsu, is a yochevet achos Sarah ishto mina'ah. The ain't tovsu b'kedushin. The chayin in Meis Ruvain Lelozara ain't bias hayavam al achas miyah, meaning the shnia and the revius potrasa poter sarasa. Kevan she'enam nishos Ruvain. The imba Ruvain al Rivka shnia liachar shenodal al misas malka rishona. The achein emes hayadavar shemesa ishta rishona. In kein tofsu kiddusha b'Rivka shnia. Kevan she'achar misas achosu muteres linasi lo v'ishta. Umuter b'Rivka shenasa shnia. U'b'yochevet shenasa revius. Kevan she'nesua shnia Rivka tofsu. Is ein kiddusha shlishis Sarah she'achosa mi'ima tofsim. V'hi ka'anusa u'mefuta shemuta lisa sachosa Umuta b'revius, meaning b'yochevet, she'achosa me'av, shehi achosa me'av shel Sarah, the mace lo zara v'cholatz achiv liachas me'an arein pochel sorsei michalitza kevin shein nosh. Beruvein asur b'sara shenos hashlishes, kevin shashniya Rivka hi achosa me'ima shehi bas k'tora nesua lo, ve'sara yachos ishto me'em, ve'chein asur b'dina shenosa chamishes, kevin sherevius haravius yochevet she'achosa me'ima hi bas Leah Nesua Lo Medina Hiachos Ishto Minaim. So the Gemara is medayik here on the top of Nun Hey Alma Achos Ishto Bein Achosa Mina Av Ubein Achosa Mina Eim Asuros Shemimasha Ruvain Asa Berivka Shenosa Shnia Shehi Achosa Me'avia Shal Malka Shenosa Rishona V'chein Asa B'yochevet Shenosa Revius She'achosa Me'avia Shal Sora Shenosa Shliches Haresh Asura Achos Ishto Mina Av Umasha Shanina B'Mishnah Mimasha Shanina B'Mishnah Sheruvein Muta B'Sora Shenosa Shliches Mishum Delo Tafsi Kedushi Beruvein Shenosa Shnia Mashma Shemayu Tovsi Kedushi B'Shnia Haya Asa B'Shliches She'achosa Me'ima Haresh Asura Achos Ishto Mina Em. Is minolan? How do we know that achos ishto mina em is ishto beimina avu beimina em? And that's the alfusa that the Gemara is going to bring here on the top of Daf Nun Hey, which we'll see in Mirz Hashem in the Daf for tomorrow.